Darkness enveloped the city streets as a homeless man named Jack sought shelter in the shadows of an alley. His worn clothes and weathered face told a story of hardship and loss, a stark contrast to the successful businessman he once was. Memories of happier times haunted him, taunting him with the life he could no longer claim as his own. As Jack settled into his makeshift bed of cardboard boxes, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He scanned the alley, his eyes straining against the gloom, until they settled on a pair of glowing orbs in the distance. A chill ran down his spine as he realized the eyes belonged to a bear, its massive form lurking just beyond the reach of the streetlights. Jack's heart raced as he watched the bear, fear and curiosity battling within him. The animal made no move to approach, but it didn't retreat either. Instead, it seemed to study Jack, as if trying to understand his presence in its urban jungle. Exhaustion finally overtook Jack, and he drifted into a restless sleep, the bear's watchful gaze never leaving his mind. Little did he know that this encounter would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and the world around him. Morning brought a hazy light to the alley, and with it, the realization that the bear was gone. Jack rubbed his eyes, wondering if the encounter had been nothing more than a dream. He gathered his meager belongings and set off into the city, his mind still grappling with the events of the night before. As he walked the streets, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. Every shadow seemed to hold the bear's presence, every rustle of leaves a whisper of its movement. He quickened his pace, his heart pounding in his chest, until he found himself in a secluded park on the outskirts of the city. There, in the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, Jack saw the bear again. It stood at the edge of the clearing, its gaze fixed upon him. Slowly, cautiously, Jack approached the animal, his fear giving way to a strange sense of curiosity. To his surprise, the bear made no move to attack. Instead, it lowered its head, as if in a gesture of acknowledgement. Jack reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing against the bear's coarse fur. In that moment, something shifted within him, a long-forgotten warmth stirring in his chest. From that day forward, Jack and the bear became inseparable. They wandered the city together, the bear always keeping a watchful eye on Jack, guiding him through the maze of streets and alleys. And for the first time in years, Jack didn't feel alone. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and the bear's unusual friendship began to attract attention. Passers-by would stop and stare, their expressions ranging from disbelief to fear. Some even called the authorities, reporting a wild animal roaming the city streets. But the bear remained steadfast in its devotion to Jack, never leaving his side. It seemed to understand his every need, leading him to sheltered spots when the weather turned harsh and guiding him to hidden sources of food and water. One day, as they rested in a quiet corner of the park, Jack noticed a group of children playing nearby. They laughed and chased each other, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to his own burdened heart. As he watched, a ball rolled towards him, coming to rest at his feet. Hesitantly, Jack picked up the ball and tossed it back to the children. They giggled and waved, inviting him to join their game. For a moment, Jack hesitated, the weight of his past holding him back. But then the bear nudged him forward, as if urging him to embrace the moment. Slowly, Jack approached the children, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. They welcomed him into their game, their laughter ringing through the air. And for a brief, shining moment, Jack forgot the pain of his past and allowed himself to be swept up in the simple joy of human connection. As Jack and the bear continued their journey through the city, they encountered a group of homeless individuals huddled together in a forgotten corner of the park. They eyed Jack warily, their gazes filled with the same hopelessness that had once consumed him. Moved by their plight, Jack approached them, offering what little he had, a kind word, a gentle smile, a shared meal. The bear watched from a distance, its presence a silent guardian over the small gathering. Among the group was an elderly woman named Esther, her face lined with the trials of a hard-lived life. She took a liking to Jack, sharing stories of her own struggles and the family she had lost along the way. In her words, Jack found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the depths of his pain. As the days passed, Jack and Esther grew closer, their bond forged by shared experiences and a mutual understanding of loss. She taught him the value of community, of finding strength in the support of others. And slowly, Jack began to see the world through new eyes, recognizing the power of compassion and the importance of human connection. The bear, too, seemed to sense the change in Jack. It watched over him and Esther, its protective presence a constant reminder of the transformative power of love and friendship. Together, Jack, Esther, and the bear formed an unlikely family, a beacon of hope in a world that had once seemed so dark. One fateful morning, as Jack and the bear made their way through the park, they stumbled upon a shocking scene. Esther lay motionless on the ground, her belongings scattered around her. A group of young men stood nearby, their laughter cruel and taunting. Rage and grief surged through Jack as he realized what had happened. These men had attacked Esther, a helpless woman whose only crime was seeking shelter in the park. He lunged forward, his fists clenched, ready to defend his friend. But the bear was quicker. It charged at the men, its roar echoing through the trees. They scattered, their bravado quickly replaced by fear as they fled the scene. Jack rushed to Esther's side, his heart pounding as he checked for signs of life. To his relief, Esther was still breathing, though her face was bruised and her body battered. Jack gathered her in his arms, the bear standing guard over them both. He knew he needed to get her to safety, to find help before it was too late. As he carried Esther through the streets, Jack's mind raced with thoughts of the cruelty she had endured. How could anyone harm such a gentle soul, someone who had already suffered so much? The injustice of it all weighed heavily upon him, fueling his determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. With the bear by his side, Jack sought out the local shelter, a place he had once avoided out of pride and fear. But now, he knew it was the only hope for Esther's recovery. As he entrusted her to the care of the shelter's staff, Jack made a silent vow to stand up for the vulnerable, to be a voice for those who had been silenced by the cruelty of the world. In the days following Esther's attack, Jack found himself grappling with a newfound sense of purpose. He spent his days at the shelter, watching over Esther as she slowly regained her strength. The bear, meanwhile, kept a watchful eye on the entrance, its presence a deterrent to any who might wish them harm. As Esther recovered, she shared more of her story with Jack. She spoke of the family she had once had, of the children she had raised and the husband she had loved. But time and circumstance had taken them from her, leaving her alone in a world that had little use for an aging woman with no home. Jack listened intently, his heart breaking for the pain Esther had endured. He recognized in her story echoes of his own loss, the devastating impact of a life torn asunder by forces beyond one's control. And in that shared understanding, he found a renewed sense of kinship with the woman who had become his closest friend. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and Esther began to discuss the future. They dreamed of a world where no one would have to suffer as they had, where compassion and kindness would reign supreme. And slowly, an idea began to take shape in their minds. They would create a sanctuary, a place where the homeless and the lost could find shelter and support, a place where they could rebuild their lives, surrounded by the love and understanding of a community that cared. And at the center of it all would be Jack and Esther, the unlikely pair who had found hope in the darkest of places. With the bear by their side, Jack and Esther set out to make their dream a reality. They knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they were determined to see it through. For in each other, and in the love of the bear that had brought them together, they had found the strength to face any challenge that lay ahead. As Jack and Esther began to plan their sanctuary, they knew they would need help. They reached out to the other homeless individuals they had met in the park, inviting them to be a part of their vision. Many were hesitant at first, their trust worn thin by years of hardship and disappointment. But Jack and Esther persisted, their passion and sincerity winning over even the most skeptical of hearts. They spoke of a future where everyone would have a place to call home, where no one would have to face the dangers and indignities of life on the streets. And slowly, a community began to form around them. Among their newfound allies was a young man named Liam, whose quick wit and resourcefulness had helped him survive on the streets for years. He brought a keen eye for logistics and a knack for finding resources in the most unlikely of places. With Liam's help, Jack and Esther began to map out the practical steps they would need to take to make their dream a reality. They scouted locations for their sanctuary, searching for a place that would be safe and accessible to those who needed it most. They reached out to local businesses and organizations, seeking donations of food, clothing, and other necessities. And through it all, the bear remained a constant presence, a symbol of the strength and resilience that had brought them this far. As their plans began to take shape, Jack and Esther knew they would face challenges along the way. There would be those who opposed their efforts, who saw the homeless as a problem to be swept aside rather than a community to be lifted up. But they also knew that they had something more powerful than any obstacle they might face: the love and support of those who shared their vision. With Liam and the others by their side, Jack and Esther pressed forward, their determination unshakable. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that every step they took was a step towards a better future for themselves and for all those who had been left behind by a world that had forgotten them. As the weeks turned into months, Jack and Esther's sanctuary began to take shape. They found an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, its walls crumbling and its windows shattered. But where others saw only decay, they saw potential. With the help of their growing community, they set to work, clearing away the debris and repairing the damage wrought by years of neglect. They salvaged what they could and made do with what they had, their ingenuity and determination transforming the derelict space into a place of warmth and welcome. As word of their efforts spread, more and more people began to seek out the sanctuary. Some came seeking shelter, others looking for a sense of purpose and belonging. And all were welcomed with open arms, regardless of their past or their circumstances. Among the newcomers was a woman named Maria, who had fled an abusive relationship with nothing but the clothes on her back. She was wary and withdrawn at first, her trust shattered by the cruelty she had endured. But in the gentle compassion of Esther and the steadfast protection of the bear, she found the strength to begin healing. As Maria slowly opened up to those around her, she discovered a talent for art that had lain dormant for years. She began to paint murals on the walls of the sanctuary, her brushstrokes bringing color and life to the once drab interior. And in the process, she found a sense of purpose and pride that had long been denied her. With each passing day, the sanctuary grew stronger, its residents coming together to create a community built on love and mutual support. They shared meals and stories, laughter and tears. And through it all, the bear remained a constant presence, a symbol of the resilience and courage that had brought them together. But even as they celebrated their triumphs, Jack and Esther knew that their work was far from done. There were still so many others out there who needed their help, so many lives waiting to be transformed by the power of compassion and connection. And so they pressed on, their hearts full of hope and their eyes fixed on the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sanctuary flourished, Jack and Esther knew that they needed to find ways to sustain their community in the long term. They began to brainstorm ideas for small businesses and social enterprises that could provide employment and income for their residents. Liam, with his entrepreneurial spirit, took the lead on this project. He proposed a recycling initiative, collecting discarded materials from local businesses and transforming them into eco-friendly products that could be sold to support the sanctuary. The idea quickly gained traction, with residents eager to put their skills and creativity to work. As the recycling business grew, so too did the sense of pride and purpose among the sanctuary's residents. They saw themselves not as helpless victims, but as valuable contributors to a cause greater than themselves. And in the process, they began to shed the shame and stigma that had long clung to them like a second skin. But even as they celebrated their successes, Jack and Esther knew that they could not rest on their laurels. They had seen firsthand the toll that homelessness could take on the mind and body, the way it could erode one's sense of self-worth and hope for the future. And so they began to explore ways to provide mental health support and counseling to their residents. They reached out to local therapists and social workers, inviting them to volunteer their time and expertise at the sanctuary. And slowly but surely, they began to see the impact of their efforts. Residents who had once been lost in the depths of depression and despair began to find their way back to the light, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they were not alone. Through it all, the bear remained a constant presence, a symbol of the strength and resilience that had brought them this far. And as Jack looked around at the thriving community they had built, he knew that he had found his true calling. He had once been lost and alone, but now he had a purpose and a family. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the power of love and compassion. As the sanctuary continued to grow and thrive, Jack and Esther knew that they needed to start thinking about the future. They had built something incredible, but they also knew that they wouldn't be around forever. They needed to ensure that their vision would endure long after they were gone. And so they began to groom the next generation of leaders, identifying those among their residents who showed the most promise and potential. They mentored them, sharing the lessons they had learned and the values that had guided them on their journey. Among those young leaders was a woman named Sophia, whose quiet strength and compassion had earned her the respect and admiration of all who knew her. She had come to the sanctuary as a teenager, fleeing a life of abuse and neglect. But in the love and support of her newfound family, she had blossomed into a confident and capable young woman. Under Jack and Esther's guidance, Sophia began to take on more and more responsibility within the sanctuary. She organized events and outreach programs, bringing in new volunteers and supporters from the wider community. And through it all, she remained guided by the same principles of love and compassion that had brought her to the sanctuary in the first place. As the years passed, Jack and Esther began to step back from their leadership roles, entrusting the future of the sanctuary to Sophia and the other young leaders they had nurtured. And while it was bittersweet to let go of the reins, they knew that they had built something that would endure long after they were gone. And through it all, the bear remained a constant presence, a reminder of the journey that had brought them to this point. It had been there from the beginning, a silent guardian and a symbol of the resilience and courage that had guided them through the darkest of times. And as Jack and Esther looked to the future, they knew that the bear would continue to watch over the sanctuary and all those who called it home, a living embodiment of the love and compassion that had brought them together. Years turned into decades, and the sanctuary continued to thrive under Sophia's leadership. Jack and Esther, now in their twilight years, watched with pride as their legacy grew and flourished, touching countless lives along the way. But even as they celebrated the sanctuary's successes, they knew that there was still work to be done. Homelessness and poverty remained pervasive issues, and they knew that they could not rest until every person had a safe and stable place to call home. And so, in their final years, Jack and Esther set out on one last mission. They began to advocate for systemic change, using their platform and their influence to push for policies that would address the root causes of homelessness and inequality. They met with politicians and policymakers, sharing their stories and the lessons they had learned over a lifetime of service. At first, progress was slow, and they faced resistance from those who were content with the status quo. But Jack and Esther persisted, their determination and their moral clarity winning over even the most skeptical of hearts. And slowly but surely, they began to see the fruits of their labor. New programs and initiatives were launched, aimed at providing affordable housing, job training, and mental health support to those in need. And as these programs took root, Jack and Esther saw the impact ripple out across the city and beyond, touching lives in ways they had never imagined possible. And through it all, the bear remained by their side, a constant reminder of the journey that had brought them to this point. It had been there from the beginning, a silent guardian and a symbol of the resilience and courage that had guided them through the darkest of times. As Jack and Esther entered their final days, they knew that their work was not yet done. But they also knew that they had built a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, a testament to the power of love, compassion, and the unbreakable human spirit. And so, with the bear by their side, they faced the future with hope and courage, knowing that the seeds they had planted would continue to grow and flourish, nurtured by the love and dedication of all those who had been touched by their vision. The news of Jack and Esther's passing rippled through the city like a shockwave. For so many, they had been a beacon of hope and inspiration, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a way forward. Thousands came to pay their respects at the memorial service, held in the heart of the sanctuary that Jack and Esther had built. There were tears and laughter, stories and songs, as people from all walks of life came together to celebrate the lives of two extraordinary human beings. Sophia, now a woman in her own right, stood at the podium, her voice trembling with emotion as she spoke of the impact that Jack and Esther had had on her life. She spoke of the love and compassion they had shown her, the way they had believed in her even when she hadn't believed in herself. And as she spoke, the bear stood by her side, a silent presence that seemed to embody the spirit of Jack and Esther themselves. It was as if they were still there, watching over the sanctuary and all those who called it home. In the days and weeks that followed, the community came together to carry on Jack and Esther's legacy. They volunteered their time and resources, working tirelessly to ensure that the sanctuary remained a place of hope and healing for all those in need. And as they worked, they began to notice something extraordinary. The bear, which had once been a constant presence at Jack's side, began to appear in the most unexpected of places. It was spotted wandering the streets of the city, as if on a mission of its own. Some said that the bear was searching for those in need, guided by the same instinct that had brought it to Jack all those years ago. Others believed that it was a manifestation of Jack and Esther's spirits, watching over the city and its people from beyond the veil. But whatever the truth may be, one thing was certain. The bear had become a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of the greatest challenges, there was always a way forward. And as the community looked to the future, they knew that they would carry on Jack and Esther's legacy, guided by the enduring spirit of the bear. Years passed, and the sanctuary continued to thrive under Sophia's leadership. The recycling business that Liam had started all those years ago had grown into a thriving social enterprise, providing employment and training opportunities for hundreds of people. The mental health programs that Jack and Esther had pioneered had become a model for other organizations around the country, helping countless individuals to overcome trauma and build new lives for themselves. And through it all, the bear remained a constant presence, appearing in the most unexpected of places and touching the lives of all those who crossed its path. There were stories of the bear guiding lost children back to safety, of it appearing at the bedside of the sick and the dying, offering comfort and solace in their final moments. Some even claimed to have seen the bear in their dreams, a silent guardian watching over them from afar. As the years turned into decades, the legend of the bear only grew. It became a symbol of the city itself, a reminder of the resilience and compassion that had guided its people through even the darkest of times. And so, when the city faced its greatest challenge yet, a natural disaster that left thousands homeless and destitute, it was the bear that once again led the way. Guided by its instincts, the bear appeared at the scene of the disaster, leading rescue workers to those who were trapped and in need of help. It was as if the bear could sense the suffering of those around it, and was determined to do whatever it could to ease their pain. In the aftermath of the disaster, the sanctuary once again became a beacon of hope for those who had lost everything. And as the community came together to rebuild and heal, they did so with the spirit of the bear guiding them forward. For they knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would always have the strength and the compassion to overcome them. They had learned that lesson from Jack and Esther, and from the bear that had been their constant companion and guide. And as they looked to the future, they did so with hope and determination, knowing that the legacy of the bear would endure, a testament to the power of love and the unbreakable human spirit. Decades turned into centuries, and the world changed in ways that Jack and Esther could never have imagined. But through it all, the legacy of the bear endured, a constant reminder of the power of compassion and the resilience of the human spirit. The sanctuary that they had built had long since expanded beyond the borders of the city, becoming a global network of communities dedicated to healing and empowerment. And at the heart of it all, the legend of the bear continued to inspire and guide those who sought to make a difference in the world. There were statues and monuments erected in its honor, works of art that celebrated the bear's enduring spirit. And every year, on the anniversary of Jack and Esther's passing, people from all over the world would gather at the sanctuary to pay their respects and share their stories. For some, the bear was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a way forward. For others, it was a call to action, a challenge to do more, to be more in service of those in need. But for all of them, the bear was a testament to the enduring power of love and compassion, a reminder that the greatest strength lay not in the individual, but in the bonds that connected us all. And so, as the world continued to turn, the legacy of the bear endured, passed down from generation to generation, a guiding light for all those who sought to make a difference. For they knew that, as long as there were those who suffered, as long as there were those in need, the bear would be there, a constant companion and guide, leading the way forward with unwavering strength and unending compassion. And as they looked to the future, they did so with hope and determination, knowing that the legacy of the bear would endure, a testament to the power of love and the unbreakable human spirit. For in the end, that was the true miracle of the bear, the greatest gift that Jack and Esther had given to the world. A reminder that, no matter how dark the night may seem, there was always a new dawn waiting just beyond the horizon, a promise of hope and healing for all those who dared to dream. And as the centuries passed, something extraordinary began to happen. In cities across the world, there were whispers of other bears appearing, each one carrying the same gentle wisdom and protective spirit as the original. They would emerge in times of great need, guiding the lost and bringing hope to the hopeless, just as the first bear had done for Jack so many years ago. In the sprawling metropolis of Neo-Tokyo, a bear was seen leading a group of children away from a crumbling building moments before it collapsed. In the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, another bear appeared to protect a community clinic during civil unrest. In the frozen streets of Moscow, a bear guided stranded travelers to warmth and safety during the worst blizzard in recorded history. Scientists and scholars debated the phenomenon, unable to explain how these bears could exist in urban environments, or why they showed such remarkable intelligence and compassion. Some suggested they were advanced AI constructs, while others believed they were manifestations of humanity's collective desire to help one another. But those who knew the original story of Jack and Esther understood the truth. These bears were a living embodiment of their legacy, a reminder that acts of kindness could ripple through time and space in ways that defied explanation. At the original sanctuary, now a sprawling complex that served millions each year, the staff maintained a special garden where their bear would often rest. They had learned long ago not to question its mysterious comings and goings, understanding that its purpose extended far beyond their walls. Young children would often visit the garden, leaving drawings and letters for the bear. Some claimed they could hear it whisper stories of Jack and Esther, tales of hope and transformation that had been passed down through generations. Others said that in moments of perfect stillness, they could feel the presence of all those who had been touched by the bear's magic throughout the centuries. And so the story continued to grow, each new chapter adding to the rich tapestry of compassion and courage that Jack and Esther had begun. The bears became known as the guardians, silent protectors who appeared wherever they were needed most, carrying forward a legacy of love that would endure for as long as there were hearts in need of healing. End of story.